So it doesn't matter which hamster wheel you're on. You could be in the corporate job running around in circles, or you could be running your own business and still feel the same way that you're running around in circles because the financial mistakes that we make is still the same. We didn't change it. We just changed our situation. We just changed our environment, but we overspend. We don't keep track of our expenses.
You don't have to wait until you reach financial independence to start enjoying your life. You can do that much earlier and start living a life that you love and that's true to you. Welcome to Freedom Before FIRE. Using FIRE and life design techniques, we help you create freedom on your way to FIRE instead of waiting until you're retired to do the things that light you up. I'm your host Greg, a FIRE movement and life design enthusiast. If you're itching to get freedom now, then let's do this. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Freedom Before FIRE. Apologies if I sound a little bit bunged up and sniffly today. I've got a little bit of a cold, but we're not going to let that stop us today, are we? Luckily for you, I wasn't like this during the actual interview, so we're all good there. Anywho, on this episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Kenneth Reyes-Lao, and we had a good in-depth chat about his journey from living in a capital city, working in corporate, to moving to a smaller city with more nature, making and selling his own chocolate. Now, how awesome is that? So Kenneth and his wife are founders of Cacao Culture, a social enterprise based in Davao, which is in the south of the Philippines. Their mission is to spread love for Philippine cacao and chocolate. They're also financial literacy advocates and are founders of the Facebook group FIRE Movement PH, where they bring together Filipinos globally to help each other on their FI journeys. So Kenneth shares a lot on this one, and you'll hear plenty of gems that you can take away. Some of the key things that you'll learn today include why and how he gave up a six-figure salary to start his own chocolate business, earning less than before, how they used lifestyle design to move somewhere with a much better pace of life with more nature, using domestic geoarbitrage, how living somewhere with a lower cost of living helped them experiment with entrepreneurship, how he created the chocolate business with no farming or chocolate background at all, how he finds purpose for his current business, how he started the FIRE Movement PH Facebook group, the advantages and disadvantages of pursuing FIRE in the Philippines, investment options for Filipinos living in Philippines to pursue FIRE, his 3 pillars of earning and accumulating money, and his FIRE number target and his timeline to get there. As you can see, we delve into quite a lot, so without further ado, let's jump into it. All right, so welcome to the show, Ken. So happy that you're here. Thank you very much for your time. Got a really interesting story. I'm looking forward to sort of diving into it and unpacking it a bit more. But before we get into that, Ken, do you mind just doing a really quick introduction about yourself and what you're up to?
Thanks, Greg. My name is Ken, and I am currently running a social enterprise called Cacao Culture. We are based here out of Davao City. So I work with my wife, and we make and promote Philippine chocolates.
Amazing. Our favorite subject, chocolates. I'm sure you get that all the
Yes,
time, and everyone says the same thing. I'm no different. So what? Just
yeah,
just really
definitely.
quickly, just really quickly before we get into the other things. What's kind of like your best sellers? Who are your clients? Type thing to get a bit of a understanding about that.
During the pandemic, we did our version of Nama chocolate, which is like it's very popular in Japan. So it's Anama chocolate is popularized by a company called Roy's Chocolate. So it's a truffle-based
Oh,
chocolate, which definitely melts in your mouth, kind of thing. And we've been getting a lot of following from the local chocolate lovers here in Davao City, and definitely their support has been pushing us all the way up to opening our shops here.
Oh, amazing. Sorry, and how many shops do you have?
We currently have two shops. We just opened our second shop at Poblacion Market Central. So it's like a pasalubong center, or where you could buy local gifts.
Yep. Nice, nice. Yeah. I'm a hot chocolate fan. So and I like dark chocolate. I never liked it when I was younger, but something growing up I really enjoy now. So I'd love to try it out one day.
Sure, Greg, come visit us here.
Definitely. All right. Okay, Ken. So obviously there's a lot of things I want to go into specifically about, finding freedom on your journey to FI. And the things I wanted to touch on today were things around, I know we talked about like career changes, talking about domestic geo arbitrage and just general FI sort of tips and tricks for the listeners. So those are the kind of things that we'll be jumping into. And Ken's got an awesome story. So what I'll do, Ken, is if you could just take us back, because obviously you've transitioned into what you're doing now in cacao culture from something you were doing previously, something totally different. So can you kind of take us back to what you were doing before cacao culture? Maybe even just like, what did you study and how you got to that? And, your previous work. Just take us from there, and then we'll sort of take it. We'll go from there.
So I graduated from Ateneo de Manila with a course of interdisciplinary studies, which allowed me to combine two different courses like business administration and also marketing. And after that, I worked with a company called Liwayway Marketing Corporation, which I would say is more popularly known with their product called Oishi, the snack foods.
Yep.
And I used to work for them as a plant manager in China. So they're pretty big there. They have a lot of production plants in China, and I was working for them for maybe a good 4 years.
Nice.
So after that, I did further studies. I studied at the Asian Institute of Management for my MBA, and went on to work with a company called Transnational Diversified Group, which is a local conglomerate which had a lot of different companies, primarily in the logistics and ship management space.
Mm-hmm.
But I was assigned to work on their IT companies, one of their IT companies, and that's where I met my wife, Sheila. And from there, we were able to hit it off. And you know, even as boyfriend girlfriend in a relationship, we were able to start a business and pitch to Globe Telecom for a tech startup. We were funded around 2013 under Kickstart Ventures.
Nice.
But uh, that story, I guess, didn't end as well as we would have hoped, but definitely it was a learning experience. We closed down that company around 2016, the same time we got married and decided to move to Davao City. So, in a nutshell, that's like different chapters of my life. And the switch to moving to Davao City came from I would say, the closure of our business. It was like definite closing of a book,
Mm-hmm.
and we needed a fresh start, and we were looking for a place that we could, uh, start again and see where life will take us. That sort of
Yeah.
thing, Greg. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So just so I understand then, so before you sort of moved to Davao and started Cacao Culture, you had a business. Was that a full time thing that you were doing with your wife?
Yeah. It was a bit mixed.
Hmm.
She was doing it full time, and then I was working as well and doing it with her. And then maybe in the latter part of the run, we fully embraced working and start with the business or in the business,
like full time.
and we left our corporate world behind.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so interesting. So I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that kind of in that corporate world, and they're like, "Oh, I'd like to like start my own thing." What made that shift from okay, I want to move from the corporate world into sort of entrepreneurship?
I think it's in my blood. My dad and mom are entrepreneurs. They ran their own business. We used to have a bakery back in the day, and my dad never really had a corporate job. So even after they closed down that company, he started different companies. So I guess even if he still pushes me to, go with the same safer route of having a job and working in corporate, I think at the back of my head, it's ingrained that I need to be doing my own thing, and that pushed me to try. It didn't pan out the way we hoped to, but I guess after that experience, we both decided that we couldn't go back to corporate anymore, even if that failed. It was like, I think we need to do this and then try again, that sort of thing.
So just to get an understanding of like timelines, how long were you working sort of full time on the tech business before you moved to Cacao Culture?
We were doing it part-time because we still had work and doing
Mm-hmm.
it like a side hustle, and then we were funded around 2013, maybe a good 3 years.
So corporate, and then slowly graduated into sort of part time, bit of corporate, and then a bit
Yeah,
of business. Would you say full time for around 3 years? Is that right?
that's correct. Yeah.
And then you decided to go Cacao Culture. Yeah. Okay. So that's
Mm.
yeah, that's interesting because you what was good on your side is you kind of done it gradually. It wasn't just a full on fall off the cliff and just jump straight into it.
Yeah.
So that I suppose that kind of that might have helped with the transition. Okay, and then just so I've got this right, during this phase before you went to Cacao Culture, did you know about FIRE and financial independence and that kind of thing then, or was that to come later in your story?
That definitely came in later. This is the phase where we wasted a lot of money doing a lot of stupid things. So,
Yeah, we
so
we all
yeah,
have to go through that.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine.
We all had to go through that. So that the fire thing came in much later, and
Okay,
looking back, after our failed business and then the decisions that we made, that's when I found out that there are certain decisions that were already part of the fire umbrella, you know,
right.
like the geo arbitrage thing. We didn't
Yeah.
know about that until later on, but that was a decision that we made as a couple. And yeah, so it was very interesting for me to look back and see that, huh, my decisions were aligning towards this path anyways. And then I looked at it and investigated more and figured out, there's something here that I could really tap into, and I felt it was a holistic approach to personal
Hmm.
finance.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's when we decided to go all in on this.
Okay. So that's great. So we talked about you going through corporate and then working on the tech business, which you kind of ramped down in like 2016. And then obviously we know about you working, setting up Cacao Culture. So can you just run us through that journey from running that previous business and then starting up a new one? What was it like ramping down one and then starting another one? Like, what was the motivations behind that? Why did you go into, the chocolate industry? How did that transition come around?
So with the tech, I think we held on it for far longer than we should. We felt that since it was our first business, I think we considered it to be our baby kind of thing. So it was a very emotional company. that we held on to, even though the writing was on the wall. Back then, internet connection was spotty at best. Credit card penetration was also low, and the tech startups that were coming in were, I guess, were just coming in at around that time, like Uber, Grab, uh,
Mm-hmm.
like Lazada. They were just coming in into the market. So the the burden of trying to educate the Philippine market about the services that we were offering took a toll on us. And then when we decided to shut down, it was more of a we got burnt out. We we got tired of trying to turn this around. And then when we decided to move to Davao, it was primarily about getting, or I think it was primarily about changing the pace of our lifestyle. You know, living
Right.
in BGC, living in Manila, it was a really fast-paced lifestyle. The lifestyle cost or expense, living expenses in the city was very high. And we felt that if we had this much money left in the savings account, how can we prolong that? How do we build a runway, extending that and finding our groove, I guess. So moving to a city where the expenses are much lower allowed us to do that, explore things that we were thinking or trying things out. So when we moved to Davao, that was the first thing. It was more about the lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
The And then when we visited some friends, exploring places where we could stay or rent, our friends mentioned or pointed us to a direction where there were seminars being conducted by DTI, or the Department of Trade and Industry, and Department of Agriculture. And cacao, I guess, caught my attention because personally I didn't know it chocolates grew from a plant. Some like I've lived in the city my whole life, and it was my first time to see a cacao plant and realize that, Philippines could grow its own chocolate. I didn't know that. So that light bulb idea, or that bright idea, just came from that one training, and then I told Sheila, I called her, I know what we're doing in Davao. We're gonna start our own cacao farm. And I said, what's the worst that could happen? We eat our own chocolates. That's the worst thing that could happen, right? So there's this,
You
yeah,
were your own client.
yeah. So there was this naive optimism about doing this thing. And I just shared to you my background. We didn't have any background in agriculture or chocolate, but I did have background in food processing
Hmm.
while working with Oishi, but that came much, much later. So when we started Cacao Culture, it was, I guess we were figure, figuring things out. We were very techy. We were the new players in the city. New players, like there are some more established chocolate makers in the city, and I guess we were we just placed ourselves like the underdog, you know, um,
Hmm.
learning on our own, asking a lot of questions, getting mentors, and also um, doing a lot of research online. And what we figured out is that we applied a lot of the learnings that we had in our past experience in the tech company, like failing fast, getting customer feedback at a much faster rate. We were able to apply that to cacao culture, and then that's why we were able to do different products at a much faster rate. and we were, I would say, I think we were one of the first one to sell like tablea online,
Nice.
and that played a big part when the pandemic hit. So we were already selling our own products in 2018, and then when the pandemic hit, uh, our our instinct, I would say, is still to help people. So we extended our online platform, our website, and even the online shops that we had. We extended to other chocolate makers, and we still work with them up to this day. So we
Nice.
ended up selling different brands of Philippine chocolates.
Oh, amazing. And then just in terms of receiving an income from the biz, how long did it take from when you started in 2016 until you were able to like get money coming in, like sell? Was it quite quick from when you set it up, or did it take a while? Or
I think it's still an evolving process, but at the very beginning, we started with cacao seedlings.
hmm
So we just had to plant the seedlings, and private and I think private farms and public projects like from the government were acquiring the seedlings to be given away
mm,
to the farmers. So we were able to get a turnaround on those things fairly quickly. But establishing the farm in 2017, uh, yeah, it took some time because the farm, we had income from banana, and cacao came in around 2 years later. So we planted the cacao that we grew. Yeah, at that time, in the early stages, around 3 years, Sheila was still found work here in Davao.
right,
So she took on the project management job, and surprisingly, well, I guess it didn't come to a surprise, but her rate in Manila was like working here just 1/3 of her rate in Manila,
right, okay,
and
but it still helped,
it still helped. It covered
definitely,
the
yeah,
cost of living. So even if she was earning 1/3 of her salary, it covered most of the cost of living that we were
because of the
uh,
lower
lower, yeah, lower
cost of
cost
living.
of
Yeah,
living.
yeah. Actually, that leads on nicely to something I was going to ask about was obviously starting a new business, you're going to need a bit of a runway to kind of get you going and, to cover expenses as you build a business. So when you moved over to Davao and started building the chocolate business, did you have much of a runway? Like, were you working on savings? I know you touched on it that your wife was working as well. Like, financially, how did that work?
So a large portion of it would be from savings, definitely. We were still not in the fire mindset, so but
Mm.
we were already thinking about having the background or having the experience from starting our own company before. So we had that mindset of having limited resources and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely having the income from Sheila's salary helped us in our day to day. But mostly we used the savings that we were left, what was left from before. And like I said, since the cost of everything was cheaper, the what would have, I guess, what we would have spent in Manila would be maybe 3 to 6 months. We were able to extend to maybe a year here in Davao. So the amount of money that we used in our startup for Cacao Culture, we were able to extend that for a year.
That's so cool. And I'm just thinking if someone was listening to this and they're also like, oh, I want to like leave corporate and start my own thing. In your position, was there any fears? What was the fears or thoughts going through your mind or your wife's mind throughout that period? If someone's listening to this and just wanted to understand that side of it, the mindset bit.
Okay, for the people that are thinking about starting their own business and leaving corporate, I think we need to check our heart and check our minds in terms of the intention that we want to do. Largely because for me, I would not advise to just quit and then just do something. Like, that's what you typically hear, like entrepreneurs say,
Sell everything.
just drop everything, jump, that sort of thing. So my advice is more on I would say, be more cautious
Mm.
because starting your own business is not for everyone, right? It's always going to be more stressful. What you thought, you said, I don't want to work a 9 to 5 job, but you end up working a 24/7 job because of your business, right? So it's very different. The stress and I would say maturity of having to deal with people, deal with there's a lot of different things that will happen. Accounting, finance, taxes. So it's going it's glamorized now in social media that you run your own business, but there's a lot of things that you really need to look into. And is that a right fit for you and your family? Maybe a sideline or a side hustle might get your, I guess, feet wet, maybe to try it. Because
Hmm.
I have advised I have some friends that I have given advice to, and they were able to do their corporate job and do their side hustle, where their side hustle was giving them more income than their corporate job. So I would say you could go that way and then decide later on that, I could give up my corporate job and then just do this full time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then on the subject of purpose, meaning, that side of it, from your perspective, Ken, obviously you worked in corporate before, you started your own initial business, tech business with a wife, and then obviously Cacao Culture. Can you talk me through like your motivations in terms of purpose? Do you feel like you're going towards or getting closer to that kind of thing, like in terms of purpose and meaning, or was that even a factor?
I think at the beginning it didn't factor in like the purpose. It was all about money, right? It's like how
Hmm.
do we accumulate more? And
Hmm.
that's how we felt that, being in the rat race, it's like it just keeps on repeating because I realized that we were repeating the same mistakes. So it doesn't matter which hamster wheel you're on. You could be in the corporate job running around in circles, or you could be running your own business and still feel the same way that you're running around in circles because the financial mistakes that we make is still the same. We didn't change it. We just changed our situation. We just changed our environment, but we overspend. We don't keep track of our expenses. We, uh, yeah, we just buy stupid shit. And, a lot of those things, right? So it just feels like it never ends, right? So we came to a realization that there should be something bigger than this. Is this all that we will do? Like just keep running? And that's when I realized, okay, now I figured it out. We need to be more like a minimalist kind of thing. We don't have super attachments to things, spend time more with people. And the purpose came in, I guess, more on a spiritual growth. So when we were in Manila, while we grew up Catholics, and but our path to enriching ourselves was, I would say, plagued with self-reliance and feeling proud of ourselves and that we could do everything. It's like, you know, I'm on top of the world because of myself. And when that was taken away from us, we were humbled, right? So when
Hmm.
we moved to Davao, it was a journey of also self-discovery and also our spiritual growth, where we discovered that we are just stewards in this world. We don't own everything, and we just need to take care of what is given to us. And then that's how we approach things now, with the company, with our people, with our clients, and even with our personal finance. This is just like we're just managing it, you know. And then if we are able to fulfill the needs, then the purpose comes in, then we are able to serve more people, right? I think I'm still in the process of fulfilling that journey. Like I'm learning more and more every day about these
Yep.
things.
Yep. Nicely said. And just going back, because you'd obviously you mentioned about the finances as well, how that would play obviously a big part in the beginning, as most were doing in the sort of business side. Are you able to share in terms of income levels what you were getting during the corporate stage, during the tech startup, and then even till now, just generally in terms of is it covering all your expenses? Are you able to share as much as you feel comfortable to
Yeah.
share, just to give an idea of what anyone listening to, like, oh, okay, that's that might be doable for me if I was thinking of doing something similar, starting a business.
Yeah, so back in the day when we were working, the highest maybe salary would be around 90 to 100,000 a month. That's how much I would get personally. But since we are not yet husband and wife, so that's a very separate thing. So it was
Hmm.
on a personal salary was around 100,000 to make it easier. But definitely, did I have anything saved up or invested in? I wish I could have invested a lot of those things because largely what ate into my expenses was rent, because you have to, it's either you rent nearby or you drive and spend like 4 hours in EDSA traffic, 4 to 6 hours a
We're
day.
talking about BGC, is that right?
Yeah, yeah, BGC.
For anyone listening, if you're not aware of Manila, so BGC is a central business district in Manila, in the capital of Manila. Well, BGC is actually quite its own little bubble, isn't it?
Yeah,
But outside of it, very busy, lots of traffic, very noisy, lots of people, millions of people running around. So yeah, just to give that context for anyone listening, just to understand what Ken is talking about. So carry on, Ken.
yeah. So, so it's like to get to work, you have to spend maybe 2 hours in traffic, you know, and then after work, you have to go back and then 2 hours. So it was, we chose time over, you know, over saving, right? So we spent the money on rent. So
Hmm.
we got a place in BGC, which was expensive, but we found roommates and like condo mates, you know, to share the expense.
Okay, so it's kind
And
of like a
yeah,
house hacking strategy
house
as well
hacking
that
thing.
you,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, those things that we didn't know like about fires, we just did as well, you know. But definitely after that, when we did our own business, we still have the expenses that we were committed to, like living in BGC, but the
Hmm.
income wasn't there. The income wasn't the same. It was very minimal
Hmm.
compared to the corporate job that I had. And
Yep.
then now with the company that we're running, we just set ourselves on a very minimal like allowance, like
Hmm.
15,000 each. So that's 30,000
Wow, that's
right now. Yeah. So most of the
pretty
money
good.
is the most of the money is being invested back to the company and the
Hmm.
business to help it grow.
And that's, I suppose, that's the power of domestic geoarbitrage. And thanks, Ken. I was just about to get into that.
Yeah,
So obviously, just going into geographic arbitrage. I know previously on this podcast we've talked about international geographic arbitrage, if I can say that right.
yeah.
When you're going, you're going to different countries, maybe from high cost of living country to a lower cost of living, totally different country. But what Ken's talking about is him doing domestic geo arbitrage, where he's going from the capital, which is Manila, and then going down south, a region called Mindanao. Is that right, Ken? Yeah,
Yeah.
in Mindanao. And obviously having lower expenses, that's helped Ken. So Ken, can you just, I know you say you kind of stumbled on it, but yeah, what are the motivations of doing that? What other motivations did you have of moving to Davao?
The number one motivation is the change of lifestyle. So at that time when we moved in 2016, the traffic wasn't as bad, compared to Manila. It was Davao City traffic was better than Cebu, So
Mm-hmm.
for context of everyone listening, Metro Manila would have different cities, and the traffic in between cities is like crazy. And then you have Cebu City in the Visayas region that would be very similar to Manila in terms of congestion, businesses, opportunities. But when we explored Davao City, we felt that it had the feeling of the comforts of a city. Like they have the malls, they have uh, certain public transportation, and also what we liked is the access to nature. Like driving around and driving maybe 1 hour to the north would get us to farmlands, and then driving the other direction would get us to the sea, and then we are
Nice.
still in Davao City. So it was very, for us, it was very different that we could do that. And that was the primary reason. And then the second one would be the cost of living, right? So it was very cheap compared to Manila. But now I think it's catching up or trying to be Manila on its own. But definitely at the time, we were renting a house, a 300 square meter property for 13,000 pesos. Can you
Wow.
believe that, Greg? Yeah, at that time in 2016, we were staying at a property that's 300 square meters. The house in itself is 150 square meters. It's really
How many
huge. So
bedrooms is that?
it's just two bedroom, big dining and kitchen, and
With a guard, with a big, yeah,
with
with a big
yeah,
garden if
with
it's
a yard.
massive.
Yeah, and it was just 13,000. So I said, wow, we were renting like a 50,000 apartment in BGC with friends, to split the cost. And we're here living in a 300 square meter property that's 13 grand. So I said, wow, that's pretty amazing. But definitely now have changed. Inflation has really
Yeah.
affected
Okay, it's catching
buying
up.
power. Yeah, but at that time it was one of the second reason why we chose Davao City as well. And then the opportunity in Cacao really came about by chance, right? We were looking at opportunities, and the opportunity that was ingrained in my head or in our minds was the ones that we saw in Manila. So it's restaurants, having a coffee shop or a cafe, that sort of thing. But then they pointed us out to agriculture because Davao City is still a large agriculture city. So they
Hmm.
have hectares upon hectares of land that's still producing durians, pomelos, and other fruit trees like cacao as well. So when I visited one of the department of the local Department of Trade in Davao City. They pointed me into the direction, and I saw the opportunity. And yeah, I just didn't know how we will get it done, but uh, we just did. I'm still surprised that we were able to pull it off.
Well, I suppose you know I know you're saying you're surprised, but just hearing your story, you've obviously had that experience from your initial venture previously with the tech, and you said that it runs in the family. And because you had that tech background, I think you mentioned you guys are a bit tech savvy, so you kind of brought that tech savviness to the industry, to the landscape, and you kind of like made your own little niche.
Yeah,
So I think I'm not too surprised. So you've obviously brought that your skill set. Oh, fantastic. All right, so in terms of um, geographic arbitrage, just to recap, it was mainly about obviously the sort of the lifestyle, and then obviously on costs. Because on this podcast, we talk about intentionally designing your life to find bits of freedom on your way, and I think you've kind of done that. You've from one the career side where you're like, okay, the corporate life, the 9 to 5 grind, is grinding on you in some
yeah,
way, shape, or form. And obviously, you and your wife wanted to start doing your own businesses because that's what you said that you felt more inclined to do. And then you kind of then design like, okay, well, I don't want to be going in traffic, in a busy city. Don't want to be living in a busy city, spending. Although I'm earning a bit, you're spending quite a lot just for the convenience to live in the city. And then you're like, oh, I want to change this. Okay, where can I go? Okay, Davao sounds. You've done you looked at Davao, near nature, lower costs, and it sounds like you guys were like, all right, that sounds good. I'm going to do that. I'm going to switch. I'm going to transfer. So you've intentionally done that. You've lowered your costs, and what's really cool is just talking about how you move from a higher salary to a lower one, but it sounds like you're kind of enjoying it. You're heading towards your that sort of purpose, meaningful side. So you've kind of done that throughout your journey. So it's really admirable. Can your what you've done, and I'm sure a lot of people will be inspired by that. So I know we talked about we're both in what's called we're both enthusiasts of the FIRE movement. I wanted to touch on that, which is obviously about finances, but also spending into in alignment with your values and things like that. So, can you tell us about your FIRE journey? Just an additional layer on top of what you've been of your journey. Where does the FIRE movement come into that? How did you start with that, and where are you now with it?
yeah. That's a pretty good question. It came before the pandemic, around 2019, where I discovered the FIRE movement. But mostly it was content from the US, and particularly the podcast of Choose FI,
Yep, yep,
right?
yep.
So that was the one that I listened to a lot, and it got me curious. Was there anything similar in the Philippines? Why are all the content and the context and the tools all are in the US, right? So people are talking more about it. But the principle is the same. The principle and the equation, the math is the same. It's just the situation and the tools are different, right? So I was we started the Fire Movement Philippines Facebook group more as a repository of things that we discover, of what we can do, right? We're not the expert. We don't have all the answers, but it was, as I try to discover things about fire, it's more of like where I could share it. And we just the first people that we wanted to share it to was our family. But you know how it is, Greg, when you talk about money and family, it's rarely successful that they would listen to you.
Yeah.
right? So the members in our group was just me and Sheila and maybe some cousins and some uh, some siblings. But how they receive the message or how they receive some of the things that we're trying to say about fire, I'm not sure if they applied it in their life, but we just hope that they do. But later on, maybe I guess during the pandemic, where people were feeling the squeeze about not having that income and also, the uncertainty of the future, we had more Filipinos join the group. Like it ballooned to the point where
Hmm.
we, Sheila and I felt ashamed that we weren't posting as much. And then since we weren't doing anything, we were also, I guess, with the business during that time, we were locked down in the house. Sheila did a lot of R&D with the chocolate, but we felt that maybe we should do something. That's when we started a weekly Zoom call for the fire community. It was a weekly call that, just sharing, introducing each other. It wasn't like me making a speech or me teaching about a topic. It was more of like exchanging of ideas, what they were doing. And I guess that people found comfort in that it was a weekly thing. We did that every
Yeah.
Saturday. And I'm not sure if you were able to join one of those calls, Greg, but definitely the the people who joined early on were still attending, even later in the maybe 3 years after. And now, with everyone back to work, we have a hard time trying to schedule meetups and calls. But luckily, I think we try to still do it every month. And then with the particular topic, we still share and then different perspective from different Filipinos all over the world about fire is really enriching and really inspiring for others. So that's why we still keep doing it. And we like sharing the stories, right?
Yeah, and I'm still I was one of those people that you mentioned that joined sort of during the pandemic, and I think I was part of a few of those. I think you called it fire accountability sessions.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember joining a few of those in the beginning stages, and then I've always sort of kept in touch, looking at the group and checking if there's any questions that I could help answer. But yeah, it's a fantastic group. So if anyone's listening, I'll obviously put this in the show notes. But Ken started a Facebook group for fellow Filipinos around the world. Actually, isn't it? It's not just
Yeah.
Filipinos in Philippines, for Filipinos across the world that's interested in FIRE financial independence. So yeah, do check it out. Ken, so you talked about FIRE movement in the Philippines. I know you mentioned that it was more predominant overseas, particularly in America, where they've got, like, you mentioned, like the Choose a Fire podcast. They've got loads of resources out there. And obviously, you started the Facebook group here in Philippines. Is there any advantages, disadvantages, living in Philippines if they like to approach the fire movement in compared to being in US, for example, or UK or Australia? What, if any, what would you say are the advantages and or disadvantages?
I think the biggest disadvantage is the healthcare system in the Philippines, right? It's very expensive, and even though how hard you try to save and invest, you're maybe one sickness away from
Mm.
the uh, total wipeout, I guess, of the the hard work that you put in. That's one of the biggest disadvantage.
And that's mainly, just so, and if anyone listening, that's mainly because we don't have a national healthcare system in the Philippines. It's kind of, you have to kind of pay for it yourself. But obviously, you've
Yourself.
got
Yeah,
insurances, you've got like
sure.
Phil Health, Medicard, which are HMOs, but Just to clarify that for anyone, we like in UK they have the NHS National Health Service, which although you pay for tax, and essentially overall hospitals, doctors, medicines
Are
free.
free.
So I just wanted to
Similar
clarify
to
that if
us.
anyone's listening.
Yeah. Similar also to Australia. I think you have that free healthcare. Of course, you pay for it through the tax, but you see, you get out of it. You get something out of it with free healthcare.
Yeah.
And I think that's one major
Mm-hmm.
disadvantage.
Major. Yep.
And yeah, very major. And in terms of advantage, Philippines is relatively and still is, I would say, one of the cheaper countries that you could live in. Now with the internet and the internet is the great equalizer. If you could earn money doing outsourcing, doing virtual assistant work, earning in dollars and living in the Philippines, that's another geo arbitrage thing that you could take
Mm-hmm.
advantage of. Definitely, there is, or I'm not sure now, but definitely during the pandemic, there was a rise in virtual assistant work or virtual
Mm.
work, and most of it is coming into the Philippines because of our, I would say, the English language. We're very quick to learn and able to communicate to clients, and that's one advantage. Yeah, for the fire movement in the Philippines, I think there's one advantage. If you're a Filipino or you have access to Pag-ibig MP2, that's one of the, I would say throughout the years of studying how to pull off fire, that's one of the major advantage, the Pag-ibig MP2 program, which allows Filipinos to invest money. And the Pag-ibig, for those who are listening, is a service that's being done that members of that organization could borrow money for housing loans and housing repair projects, and they pay a certain interest. And for those who invested the money in the MP2 program, you're able to get a dividend from the interest that they collected, and that is tax free. And you could leave it there, and it's like a compounding interest kind of thing. So you could actually grow your money while you're still working as an OFW or as a professional in the country. So that's one of my biggest recommendations to people who ask me how to get started with fire.
Yeah, awesome. And then where are you now in terms of your fire journey? And I know obviously in the fire community, they always talk about, oh, you need to keep increasing your salary so you could kind of earn more, and then increase your savings rate, and then you could invest more. Obviously, you've taken like a lower salary in relatively speaking compared to what you were doing before. So where are you in your fire journey now? Can you sort of share anything about that in terms of numbers or what your goals are and things like that?
Yeah. So for context, me and Sheila are we've been married for 8 years and we still don't have children. So the only thing that's getting keeping us occupied would be Cacao Culture, the business, right? So our we computed our fire number, or what we hope we were able to get to would be around 15 million. And the difference with maybe a stable income from a corporate job or work is that you could expect how much will be coming in, right? But if you run your own
Mm-hmm.
business, it's very different of what how much would come in and the seasonality of things, and then you get blindsided by certain fees that you never accounted for, like certain repairs and that sort of thing. So we're still optimistic about our fire journey. but we have put a pause on the putting pressure on ourselves, that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing, right? So there's still this goal about 15 million that we need to put away and invested in earning money. And we're looking at the business as how do we grow it? How do we continue to collect assets or to increase assets and be able to provide additional income for us? We're also looking at diversifying things. So when we talk about FIRE, there's always certain pillars that I would like to describe. So one pillar would be your income or salary. The next would be business. And the most common that people would like to acquire would be rental properties, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so those three are certain pillars that we would aspire to have. So it's increased salary, a very profitable business, and also rental properties that could generate income for you down the road. For us, we're looking at building rental properties in the future and on the business side. So salary from work, we have given that up. So we sacrifice in terms of uh, getting salary from our own business. We still get paid,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just like 15 grand
As you said, it's an
for each of us
allowance.
to,
Yep.
as allowance, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we live off that, but definitely we try to grow the business in the same way that we look at it as a machine that would provide for us, right? So it's tricky, but I think in terms of our goal, it hasn't changed. We still have that 15 million fire number. But how to get there is a little more, I would say, not in the commonly walked path, right? So we
Yep.
just took a different road to get there.
Yeah. There's no right or wrong in any of the paths
Yeah.
at all. It's everyone has their unique paths and ways to get there, and that's what I love about it. So, in terms of timescales, do you have like a sort of how many years to get your target is of when to achieve that? And have you considered any alternative FI milestones like Coast FI or Lean FI or semi-retirement or things like that? So yeah.
Um, in terms of us, for ourselves, we look at uh, I would say we put it in the nice to have category to get uh to reach our FI number at around 50 when we reach 50. That's for me that's around 9 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely will I kick myself in the butt if I don't reach that? I don't think so. But yeah, but definitely that's a nice goal to have. And I realized in terms of the life that we're living, we're already living uh, quite a blessed life. We are able to do things
Mm-hmm.
like travel. We're able to work with chocolates every day. So
Already
that's
a
a
win.
choice that we make, and we get to meet a lot of interesting people as well. So I think every day is something unique and a blessing, I guess. And in terms of the fire amount, yeah, like I said, it's still there, but it fluctuates, right? This is how much we're doing now, and then it goes down, and then but we don't, put too much pressure on ourselves to really, to be stressed about it and stuff like that. I guess because of the learnings that we went through and also the philosophies that we started to believe in as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Last question before we kind of go into the quick fire round. Yeah, you did mention about aiming to kind of retire when you're 50. But something says to me that you would probably still be doing cacao culture or some business anyway, and you're saying you're already living that kind of like a blessed life, good quality of life right now. Theoretically, if you ever did get to 50 and you did, hit your FI number, what would you be doing?
Mm, probably helping a lot more people. How, I don't know yet, but definitely in terms of using my skill and experience, because there's a lot of people who are lost in a sense that, you get this influx of income. Maybe some of our listeners are getting a lot of money coming in from work, uh, that's dollar based, and they convert it into peso, and then they have this huge income coming in, and then they just spend all of it away. So it's more about educating more Filipinos. That's the kind
Hmm.
of thing that we want to pursue still, and we're doing that now as well. So I don't think that the retirement portion is for me to just relax in the beach. I don't think I'm that kind of person. But definitely in terms of uh, how I look at retirement is about more being able to pass on what we've
Mm,
learned here and what we've accomplished in terms of the knowledge, the practice, the habits. We're doing that now with our niece, so she's learning from us
nice.
as well. So we hope
Oh,
that
amazing.
she continues that practice as well, right?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so it's interesting because we always think, oh, we need to get to that finish line. We need to get to
Mm.
like RE, retired early. But what you've already kind of designed your life in a way where you're kind of living part of that life anyway. And as you said, you probably do more of just helping others, and you won't just going to quit straight away. So yeah, no, fantastic. Oh, okay, no, thank you very much. Thank you for answering those questions so far. What I'd like to do now is go to a what we call a quick fire round. I've got 6 questions. I'll start with the first one. The first question is, what is your definition of freedom?
I think freedom is peace, if that makes sense. So definitely freedom is not necessarily about doing what you want, but the knowledge that you don't have to worry about things because you're
Hmm.
covered. That is what freedom is for us. It's a peaceful life kind of thing.
Yep, perfect. Nice. All right, question number 2. What's something you wished you'd done 10 years ago?
Definitely invested the money. 10 years ago, we were in our late 20s, earning, I think we were earning a lot of money for our age group, and we could have used it to start a better life as a married couple. But definitely, there are a lot of things that we could have done differently. But looking back, it was also a way for us to realize that there are things that is far more important than, drinking, buying stuff, and we're just happy that we were able to caught on versus figure that out in our 60s, because there are some people who are still at it and haven't realized it until it's too late.
Yep, good stuff. And then question number 3. What are 1 or 2 daily habits that have helped you in your life?
Daily habits, I would say prayer. We've been more prayerful when it comes to not just the business, but also in the personal finance space, because you need to have God in the plan. Because if you feel that you're just going at it alone, then it would be much, much easier to know that God is with you in terms of, getting or helping you reach your fire number. So prayer is one. And then second is the habit of just getting things done. I mean, we're very, t temptation is everywhere to just lose focus and get distracted by social media, Netflix, you know. So it's about getting things done, and you'd be surprised how far you could get ahead by just uh, getting it done. You know,
That's it.
it sounds so easy, but yeah, definitely social media is designed to distract us, to keep us on the platform, and we forget that we need to do the things that we need to do to
Yeah.
reach our fire number.
Take action. Yep. Love it. Thanks again. And then question number 4. What's your most important lesson in life?
My father always told me that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So it is very important to upskill, prepare ourselves for the right opportunity because there's a lot of opportunities in the world, but if you are not ready to receive it, then it will not materialize for you. So for us, there was opportunity for cacao and our background in tech was able to help us create our own niche. My background in food processing was able to help me in terms of understanding how the process works. So definitely, when you look back, if you take into account the past, your past work, your past relationships, your past mentors, what are you able to take away from those things? And when the opportunity comes, you'll look back, okay, it's because I was able to grow my personality, my skills, my mindset to be able to receive that opportunity. And people outside looking in would call you lucky, right?
Yeah. Nice. Okay, question number 5. What are 2 or 3 transformational book recommendations or any other sort of artistic media that have helped you?
Number one, I would give you three books, if that's okay. For everyone
Perfect.
listening, the three books would be The Richest Man in Babylon.
Mm.
That was really an eye-opener for me. That it was a series of parables or stories about money, about debt, about how we need to look at debt and our relationships. And this was based on a literal translated stories from stone tablets in Babylon, right? So if for those of you who haven't heard of this book, these are stories that are thousands and thousands of years in the past, and it's still true today. How they talk about money and our relationship with it. So that's one. The second one is Show Your Work by Austin Kleon.
Yeah.
So definitely when we were starting Cacao Culture, uh, we didn't show the finished product, we showed the process, right? So up until now, we're still evolving and we keep showing our work because you never know who's going to see it, right? So for those who are artistic and are very shy, and then they feel that they need to be a perfectionist, it needs to be perfect before I show the world. I would say that you need to read this book and feel that you're allowed to, and it's more beneficial to be able to show the work that you're doing. And one,
Mm.
maybe it will inspire other people, and then two, you might see supporters that you never know existed, you know. Uh, we've heard some stories of people coming into our shops now that said, we've been watching you since the beginning, since how you struggled and you were making this chocolate product from your R&D, or you were just testing it out, and we're very happy to now you have a store. Those kinds of stories are really inspiring and puts our work into perspective as well.
Yep.
And then the third book would be from Simon Sinek, The Infinite Game. Have you read
Mm.
that, Greg?
Of those three ones, I've read the first two. I've heard about this one. It's on my list, but I haven't read it
All
yet.
right. So Simon Sinek wrote the book The Infinite Game, and it talks about looking at business like playing Lego and not playing like a finite sport like basketball. Because in a finite sport, you have a winner and a loser. You have a time frame, like four quarters you need to win. You need to win against someone. So if you look at business as always as a finite game, then you're always trying to beat someone else. You're uh, trying to always increase your sales, always increase your profits, sometimes to the detriment of your clients, sometimes to the detriment of your values, right? So the Infinite Game talks about looking at business more as a Lego. You just like to play the game. You enjoy playing the game. You have
Mm.
your you don't see other companies as rivals or competition, but someone that inspires you. Uh, Maybe you could learn what they're doing well that you could apply on your own company. And that really, we took that to heart. And then when the pandemic hit, we didn't see them as rivals or competition. We help them out, and then we help each other out. So it was more uh about being inspired by what they're doing, even though we're in the same industry. So that's the third book that I would recommend to you, to the
Nice.
listeners.
Yep. Nice one. Yep. All right. So, question number 6. What's one or two small things that the listeners can do this week? If they wanted to do something similar to your journey, doing a career leap, doing geo arbitrage, going to another part of the island, and starting a business. Anyone that's kind of wanting to do something similar to you, what are one or two things that they can do this week?
If the listener is married, talk to your spouse. That's the number thing you're supposed to do, because it's very difficult to go on a fire journey and your spouse doesn't know that you're on a fire journey, right? You start stopping going out, you don't take her on dates, and then she's like pissed because what are you doing? Why are not
You're
why
not
are
managing the
why aren't
expectations.
we yeah, why aren't we eating out, going to the movies and stuff like that, right? So I think it's the best thing is to talk to your spouse, because this is a marathon, right?
Mm.
The fire journey is a marathon, and it's good to have someone on the team and you're going in the same direction, right? Because how we feel about money and how maybe our spouse grew up with money might be different. She might be a spender or he might be a spender, and the goal should be discussed and planned out. You can't have a plan for your family without getting your spouse involved, right? So you need to plan it out together. So that's one. For career change and career shift, it could be to start your own business or to maybe just change careers. I think it's always scary to do it, but at the end of the day, you never know if you don't try, right? So
Mm.
For those who are still young and want to try business, then go for it. If it fails, maybe you still have options to go back to work. And if it doesn't, then you have, at least you tried, right? So for those who are thinking of a career change, it's more about how you will be able to improve yourself, not just about the money, right? It's because for us, it might be about the pesos and the cents, right? How much is this company going to give me, etc., etc. And sometimes it's not about the money, it's about what we will learn and experience from that career change. Or is it the additional stress, right? So maybe it might be an incremental increase, but the stress might be exponential. Is
Mm.
that the trade-off that we want? So definitely it's about evaluating what your priorities are in life. And once you have that and your heart is set, like you check your heart, is it about the money? Are you doing it all about the money? You might have regrets later on, right? So you make sure that your heart is in the right place, and then if it is, then go for it.
Yeah, nice one. Thanks, Ken. Thanks for answering the quick fire round. Yeah, some things I just wanted to touch on was the books that you mentioned. Yeah, I've read those. So Richest Man in Babylon, awesome book. I've actually sent a copy. I sent a copy to some of my nephews because like you guys need to read this.
Yeah,
Show you.
Greg, let me share. I told my niece, if you read this book, you'll become a millionaire. She still hasn't
Sold it.
finished the book. But
Well,
when you give this to people and then they start reading it, and it's written in the very I would say old English kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
translation,
yeah,
right? So people might get bored. But I
yeah,
told them if you finish this book, you'll become a millionaire. And sometimes people just don't read it. So to everyone who's listening to Greg and this podcast, please read the book and you'll become millionaires. That's guaranteed.
yeah. And then the second one, Show Your Work. Really love that book as well. I read that. I read that I think last year. And actually, that was one of the books that helped me push and do this podcast. So yeah, so that's a good one. Infinite Games. I love that. I love your summary of it because it kind of reminds me of what we talk about on this podcast. It's like don't think about the end gate, the end goal, winning or losing. It's about enjoying the journey and
Yeah.
not like, oh, I need to get to the end goal and win. And I need to, get to my fire stash, and that's it. So he's kind of like enjoying that journey. And the last one is absolutely, if you do have another half or a significant other, yeah, do tell them. I like to talk to my wife about things. Sometimes actually I'll tell my wife, oh, this is my plans, this is what I want to do. Sometimes she's like, yeah, just do it, don't have to tell me, just go. I want to get her involved, but she's like, oh, just carry on. But yeah, it's absolutely good words of wisdom there, Ken. Well, Ken, I think obviously want to be conscious of your time. I could actually sit here and ask you loads of other questions, and I could probably sit and chat to you for a few hours, actually.
Yeah. Maybe we could do a second episode
Yeah, I think so.
later on. Yeah,
There
sure.
were so many. I've got so many other questions, but we've obviously gone. I think we've been chatting for way over an hour. So and I want to be respectful of your time. So Ken, thank you very much for your time today. Really insightful. I'll keep in touch. But just before we close off, is there anything you want to sort of plug in? Anything you want to send the listeners, or any websites, or how to contact you, type of thing?
Yeah. So for everyone who's listening, we really need the help in spreading love for Philippine chocolates. That's part of the mission that we have here at Cacao Culture. So you could definitely follow us on our social media. Uh, you can search for Cacao Culture Philippines or Cacao Culture PH. And for everyone who is in the Philippines, we could ship the chocolates nationwide. So you could visit our website at www.cacaoculture.ph. So that's on the chocolate loving people side. For the fire side, please feel free to join the Facebook group Fire Movement Philippines. It's free. We don't charge anything. We try to organize calls and events, but definitely please feel free to ask your questions. The members are very helpful and they have very insightful recommendation based on their experiences. And it's great to be inspired by fellow Filipinos who are pursuing this lifestyle, the fire lifestyle.
Awesome. Thanks, Ken. And thank you again for setting up that Facebook community. It's been really helpful and definitely helpful for sort of fellow Filipinos. So thank you very much, Ken. And also to your wife as well, because I know you've also worked in tandem. So good stuff. All right, Ken, so I'll close it there. Thank you very much. And I'll speak to you soon.
All right.
Thanks, Ken. If you think this episode would help a friend, please don't hesitate to share it with them. The show notes can be found at freedombeforefire.substack.com. If you have a question or want to connect, feel free to send me an email at freedombeforefire@proton.me. That's freedombeforefire@proton.me. If you found this show useful and want to be notified of future episodes, you can follow us on Spotify or Apple via the show's main page or on whatever app you're using right now. And lastly, if you've just learned one good thing that will help you in your journey and you want to help us out here, please do leave a 5-star rating on your podcast player app. If you're using Apple Podcasts, you can even leave a nice review by scrolling to the bottom of the podcast page. That would help us out loads. Okay, so I really hope you're able to note down a few gems from that one today. If you do have any questions, feel free to just reach out to myself or to Kenneth. Have an awesome day and I'll catch you on the next one. And as always, practice gratitude, live life by your design and do things that make you smile. You got this.